Have you ever judged someone before even knowing who they truly are? Sarah Miller did that one morning, and it would soon haunt her forever. The bright hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and nerves. Sarah walked in, holding her designer purse tight as if the walls might stain it. She was here for her surgery, a minor heart procedure. As she entered the patient room, she saw a black nurse arranging medical charts. "Good morning, Mrs. Miller," said the nurse softly. "I'm Nurse Maya Johnson. I'll be assisting you today." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "You're my nurse?" she asked sharply. "Isn't there someone more experienced?" Maya froze for a second. She had heard this tone before, that quiet insult wrapped in fake politeness. Still, she smiled. "Yes, ma'am, I've been doing this for 8 years." Sarah chuckled under her breath. 8 years must be different standards these days. Tom Miller looked uncomfortable but said nothing. The room grew colder. As Maya prepared the IV, Sarah turned to her husband and whispered, "I hope she knows what she's doing. I don't want any mistakes." Maya heard it. She always did. But she kept moving, her hands steady, her voice kind. Inside, Maya wondered why people like Sarah could never see her skill, only her skin. But she had learned long ago that silence was sometimes the loudest answer. Dr. Harris entered and greeted Maya with respect. "Good work, Johnson. Make sure Mrs. Miller is comfortable before surgery." Sarah's eyes flicked between them, realizing the doctor actually trusted this nurse, maybe even depended on her. Still, her pride didn't bend. When the anesthesia team came in, Sarah refused to look at Maya. "Just do your job," she muttered. As Maya held Sarah's wrist to check her pulse, their eyes met. For a moment, Maya saw something beneath the arrogance: fear. Fear of losing control, of being vulnerable in front of someone she had already belittled. Sarah drifted to sleep thinking she was in control. She had no idea that by the time she woke up, her world would look very different. Because sometimes, the same hands you look down on are the ones holding your life together. Subscribe to Stained Humanity if you believe that respect should never depend on color, because every heartbeat deserves dignity. Have you ever woken up and realized the person you looked down on was the one who kept you alive? Sarah Miller had no idea that this truth was about to hit her harder than any pain. When Sarah opened her eyes, the bright hospital lights blurred her vision. Her throat felt dry, and her heart monitor beeped steadily beside her. Slowly, she turned her head and saw a familiar face standing quietly at her bedside. It was Nurse Maya Johnson. For a moment, Sarah froze. The last thing she remembered before going under anesthesia was rolling her eyes at Maya's touch. Now, that same woman stood there with calm eyes and a gentle smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Miller," Maya said softly. "Your surgery went well. You're stable now." Sarah blinked, her pride flickering behind tired eyes. "You were in there?" she asked weakly. Maya nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I assisted Dr. Harris throughout the procedure. We managed a few complications, but you're safe now." Sarah's stomach turned. "Complications?" Maya looked down briefly. "Your heart rhythm was unstable for a few minutes. The doctor worked fast, and I helped resuscitate you." For a moment, the room felt silent. The sound of the heart monitor echoed between them, beep, 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 steady, because of the very woman Sarah had insulted. Tom Miller, who had been sitting in the corner, stood up with teary eyes. "Wait, you mean you saved her life?" Maya gave a modest nod. "It was a team effort, sir. But yes, I administered the final shock that brought her pulse back." Sarah couldn't speak. Her throat tightened with something she hadn't felt in years: shame. She looked at Maya's dark skin, her calm expression, her steady hands. For the first time, she saw not a color, but a human being. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. Maya smiled softly. "You don't need to thank me, Mrs. Miller. It's my duty to help anyone who needs care." But inside, Maya's heart ached. She had saved another life that might still see her as less than. She wondered if this one moment could change anything. Dr. Harris entered the room and patted Maya on the shoulder. "Excellent work, Johnson. We couldn't have done it without you." Sarah's eyes followed that moment of respect, something she had denied Maya hours ago. The irony burned inside her. She had mocked the hands that had just restarted her heart. Maya adjusted Sarah's blanket gently and said, "Rest now, you're safe." As Sarah closed her eyes, a single tear slipped down her cheek. not from pain, but from realizing that prejudice had nearly blinded her to grace. Subscribe to Stained Humanity, because sometimes the people we underestimate are the ones who save us when no one else can. Have you ever been forced to face the truth you've been running from your whole life? Sarah Miller had spent years believing she was better than some people. But now, lying in that hospital bed, she couldn't escape the image of Nurse Maya Johnson standing beside her, calm, kind, and strong. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds. Sarah stirred, feeling the weight of her guilt more than the pain from her surgery. Tom sat beside her, holding her hand. He had seen her pride crumble after hearing Maya had saved her life. Maya entered quietly, checking Sarah's vitals. Her movements were precise and gentle. "How are you feeling today, Mrs. Miller?" she asked. Sarah hesitated. I feel better." Then, after a pause, she added softly, "Thanks to you." Maya smiled faintly. "You're healing well, that's what matters." But Sarah couldn't stop herself. "I was wrong," she whispered. "Yesterday I said awful things. I judged you before I even knew you. And still, her voice cracked. "You saved me." Maya looked at her for a long moment. "We all make mistakes, Mrs. Miller," she said kindly. "What matters is whether we learn from them." Tom cleared his throat, his eyes wet. "You've taught us something we'll never forget, Nurse Johnson." A sudden knock came at the door. Dr. Harris entered, holding a clipboard. "Mrs. Miller, the board reviewed your case. It seems your heart stopped for nearly a minute during surgery. Nurse Johnson performed CPR and gave the right medication at the right second. She's the reason you're still here." Sarah gasped. "A minute," Maya looked down, trying not to make it dramatic. "It was close, but you were strong." Dr. Harris smiled. "Strong? She's alive because of you, Johnson. The hospital is recognizing your quick action." Maya nodded politely, but her eyes were humble. She didn't do it for praise. She did it because it was right. After the doctor left, Sarah turned to Maya again. "You didn't just save my life," she said, voice trembling. "You opened my eyes." Maya reached out, adjusting Sarah's pillow. "Then let's both keep them open," she said softly. When Maya left the room, Sarah watched her go, her crisp white uniform, her quiet strength, her unshakable dignity. She realized that color had nothing to do with grace, but character did. Tom squeezed Sarah's hand. "Sometimes it takes losing everything to see what really matters," he said. Sarah nodded. For the first time, she felt something she hadn't in years: humility. As the door closed behind Maya, Sarah whispered to herself, "God sent her to save me, not just my heart, but my humanity." Subscribe to Stained Humanity, because every story like this reminds us that the color of compassion is the same in every heart. Have you ever realized that saying, "I'm sorry," might not just free someone else, but finally free you? Sarah Miller had thought her surgery was the hardest part of her journey, but the real healing was still to come. A week had passed since the operation. Sarah was stronger now, walking slowly down the hospital corridor with Tom by her side. Every step reminded her of the life she almost lost and the woman who had saved it. That morning, Dr. Harris told her something unexpected. "Mrs. Miller," he said, "the hospital is holding a staff meeting to honor Nurse Johnson for her actions. You're welcome to attend." Sarah hesitated. She knew she didn't deserve to be in the same room as Maya, but something inside her whispered that she needed to go. When they entered the meeting room, nurses and doctors clapped as Maya received a small award for her bravery. She stood there smiling humbly, her uniform crisp and her eyes shining with quiet strength. Then, unexpectedly, Sarah raised her hand. "May I say something?" The room fell silent. Maya turned, surprised. Sarah's voice trembled as she spoke. "A week ago, I came here full of pride and prejudice. I judged this woman by her skin before I ever saw her heart. And still, she saved my life." Her eyes filled with tears. "I was wrong. Deeply wrong, and I will never forget what you did for me." The room remained still for a moment. Then, softly, people began to applaud, not just for Maya's heroism, but for Sarah's courage to admit her blindness. Maya stepped forward. "Mrs. Miller," she said gently, "forgiveness is also a kind of healing. We all have things to unlearn." Sarah smiled faintly. "I think I just started." Later, as Sarah prepared to leave the hospital, she stopped at the nurse's station. She placed a handwritten note in front of Maya. It read, You healed more than my body, you healed my heart. Maya folded it quietly, her eyes soft with emotion. Take care of yourself, Mrs. Miller, she said. Sarah looked at her one last time and said, No, Maya, thank you for taking care of who I became. As Sarah and Tom walked out into the sunlight, the world felt different, warmer, kinder, brighter. Not because it had changed overnight, but because she finally had. Sometimes, humanity is not found in grand gestures, but in the courage to face our own prejudice and say, I was wrong. Subscribe to Stained Humanity, because stories like this remind us that true healing begins when hearts open, not when eyes judge.